I'm a 28-year-old guy, the oldest of 4 kids in my family. I've got a younger sister who's 26, a brother who's 23, and our baby sister is 21. For as long as I can remember, we've always been a tight bunch, or at least that's how it used to feel. Every Sunday, we'd sit down for family dinner, and I genuinely looked forward to it all week. It wasn't just the food, it was the laughs, the stories, just being together. We did the same for holidays, birthdays, even the occasional spontaneous weekend hangout. For most of my life, my family was my social circle. They were my people. But recently, something's shifted. It's hard to explain exactly what, but the vibe's been off. People are acting different around me, and it's been messing with my head. At first, I thought maybe I was just overthinking things. I'd show up for dinner, and there'd be moments where I felt totally out of the loop. They'd crack up over some inside joke or story, and when I'd ask what it was about, I'd just get brushed off with something like, "Oh, nothing," or "You had to be there." I figured maybe I was just being sensitive or letting my anxiety run wild. But then something happened that I couldn't ignore. It was a random Tuesday night, and I was winding down, scrolling through Instagram before bed. That's when I saw it. My brother's girlfriend had posted a story. It was a group photo of my whole family at a fancy restaurant, the kind of place we usually save for special celebrations. They all looked like they were having the time of their lives, smiling, laughing, drinks in hand. The only thing missing was me. At first, I assumed it must have been an old picture, but when I checked the timestamp, it was from that very night. I hadn't heard a single word about any dinner plans. Nothing. The next day, I tried to bring it up casually with my mom. I didn't want to sound accusatory or dramatic, so I just mentioned the photo and asked if they'd had fun. She gave me this weird smile, like half guilty, half nervous, and said something like, "Oh, it was just a last-minute thing. We figured you were probably tied up with work." That explanation didn't sit right with me. My schedule isn't some big mystery. They know when I'm free, and even if they weren't sure, they usually text to check. I didn't press her on it, but the more I thought about it, the more unsettled I felt. A few days later, I was hanging out with my best friend, and I told her the whole story. She agreed it was odd and said maybe I should just ask them directly what was going on. I wanted to, really, but just thinking about it made my stomach turn. I was afraid of what they might say, so I convinced myself to let it go. Told myself it was probably just a fluke. One weird night. But it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, more and more things started happening. Little events here and there, brunches, game nights, a beach trip. And every time I only found out after the fact, either through social media or some offhand comment in a group chat. And it wasn't just one sibling forgetting to loop me in. It felt like the whole family was quietly leaving me out, and I had no idea why. That's when I started really paying attention. I went back through the family group chat trying to find some clue. There were inside jokes, references, things I clearly wasn't a part of. It started to feel like there were 2 different versions of my family, the one I used to belong to, and the one I was now somehow on the outside of. I knew I needed to say something, to confront them, but every time I tried to work up the nerve, I'd freeze. It's a strange, crushing feeling. Standing in a room with people you've loved your whole life and suddenly realizing you don't feel like you belong there anymore. I kept wondering if maybe I'd done something wrong. Maybe I'd upset someone without realizing it. But I couldn't think of anything. I hadn't fought with anyone. Nothing major had happened. As far as I knew, things were normal. Then came the breaking point. It was last Sunday. Normally, that means dinner at my parents' place. But that afternoon, my mom called and told me they were postponing it. No real reason, just said they'd figure out another time. I was a little bummed, but figured maybe something came up. That night, I was on Instagram again, and there it was, another post from my brother's girlfriend. A new photo. Everyone gathered at my parents' house. Plates full, smiles all around. They'd had dinner like always, but I hadn't been invited. That moment hit me like a freight train. It wasn't just a mistake or bad timing. They had dinner without me and never even mentioned it. That's when it all made sense. This wasn't just forgetfulness or coincidence. They were purposely leaving me out. Felt like I got punched in the gut. I wanted to pick up the phone and call them right then, demand an explanation. But I couldn't do it. I just sat there, staring at the picture, trying to figure out when everything changed. For the next few days, I distanced myself. Ignored texts, didn't say anything in the group chat. I didn't trust myself not to break down or lash out. Instead, I started watching everything more carefully. Their posts, their messages, trying to pick up on any hint of what I'd done to deserve this. But nothing stood out. No clear reason. No obvious mistake I could point to. Eventually, I hit a breaking point again and ended up posting on Reddit. I asked if anyone had been in a similar situation, just trying to make sense of what was happening. The response blew me away. People told me I wasn't overreacting, that something was definitely off, and that I needed to confront my family directly. And then things got even stranger. Out of nowhere, I got a private message from an anonymous account. All it said was, "I know why they're avoiding you, but you're not ready to hear it yet." Before I could even reply, the message disappeared. I just sat there, staring at my screen, completely stunned. What could be so big they thought I wasn't ready to know? Whatever it was, I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to get answers, no matter how hard they might be to hear. Date 1. I reached a point where I couldn't sit back and wonder anymore. I had to know the truth. My mom had casually mentioned a family brunch happening that weekend at a nearby cafe, and I figured, this is it. This is my chance. I was a bundle of nerves, but I showed up early and grabbed a table for all of us. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was shaking. Slowly, they all showed up, my brother, my sisters, and then my parents. They looked a little caught off guard when they saw me already there, like they didn't expect me to come. I kept the conversation light at first, trying to ease into it while everyone got settled. But the tension in the air was thick. My brother kept staring at his phone. One of my sisters barely said a word, and my mom's smile looked forced, like she was just going through the motions. Once we'd ordered food, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I brought up the Instagram photo, the one where they were all having Sunday dinner without me. I thought maybe they'd show a little guilt, maybe even offer an apology, but instead, they just glanced around at each other like I'd caught them off guard. My mom jumped in quickly, trying to downplay it all by saying they figured I was probably busy with work. But I wasn't buying it. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. I didn't let it slide. I started listing off all the events I'd stumbled across on social media. Beach days, those casual brunches, even that weekend trip they all took together. As I spoke, the table went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. My brother shot a nervous look at our mom, like he wanted to say something but didn't quite have the guts. My youngest sister started folding and unfolding her napkin, eyes glued to the table, avoiding mine completely. The silence stretched so long it felt like the entire cafe had gone quiet just to listen in. At that point, I didn't care who overheard. I laid it all out. I asked them point blank if I had done something wrong. Had I hurt someone? Was there some reason they were shutting me out like this? My voice got a little louder, and I could feel the heat rising in my face. My hands were shaking, and I could feel the tears building, but I forced them down. I just wanted the truth. My mom started insisting it wasn't a big deal, trying to wave it all off like I was overreacting. But then my brother cut her off. He looked annoyed, frustrated, and suddenly blurted out that there was a reason they hadn't been including me. But it was complicated. My dad gave him a hard look, that kind of quiet warning only dads can pull off. But the damage was already done. I turned to them all and demanded to know, what could be so complicated that no one could be honest with me? That's when the whole thing blew wide open. One of my sisters tried to reach across the table, probably to calm me down or comfort me, but I pulled back. I was done with the pretending. I told them straight, I deserved the truth. If something was going on, I had every right to know what it was. They just stared at me, like I wasn't their son, their brother, like I was someone they barely recognized. Nobody said a word. I couldn't sit there anymore. I stood up, yanked on my jacket, and walked out. I didn't even turn around. I heard my mom call my name, but I didn't stop. I got into my car and just drove, with no idea where I was even going. I just knew I needed to get away from all of it. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from my youngest sister. She said it wasn't what I thought it was and promised she'd explain everything soon, but asked me to give her a little more time. I never responded. What was I supposed to say? It felt like I'd ripped open a wound I didn't even know existed. And now I was just bleeding out, alone, with no answers and no closure. I went home and poured my heart out in an update on Reddit. I needed to vent. I needed someone, anyone, to tell me I wasn't losing it. The responses came fast. People were shocked, angry for me, and full of theories. Some thought it was family drama. Others were convinced they were hiding a major secret to protect me. Reading the comments didn't solve anything, but it helped me feel less alone. Like maybe I wasn't crazy after all. Then, later that night, my phone rang. It was my dad. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. His voice was different, quieter, more hesitant, almost guilty. He apologized for how the brunch went and said he was sorry for how everything had played out. I asked him straight up, just tell me the truth. But he kept dodging, saying it wasn't really his place to explain. He just kept repeating that it was complicated, and that I needed to trust them. I hung up feeling even more lost than before. That conversation solved nothing. If anything, it only made things worse. The next morning, I decided to call my aunt. She's always been someone I could lean on. More like a second mom to me, honestly. If anyone would level with me, I figured it would be her. We talked for a while, but the whole thing felt off. She seemed genuinely surprised when I told her what had been going on. And there were these awkward pauses, like she was trying to figure out what she could say and what she shouldn't. Right before we hung up, she gave me this weird warning. She said, "Just be patient. You'll understand soon enough." Then she ended the call. I was left holding my phone, completely baffled. What could possibly be so huge that the entire family was hiding it from me? Why did it feel like they all knew something I didn't, and had agreed to keep me in the dark? I couldn't sit around waiting anymore. Even my aunt acting weird meant this thing went deeper than I thought. I decided right then, I needed to take matters into my own hands. If they wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. This wasn't about being left out of a few family dinners anymore. It felt like my whole family had built a wall around something, and locked me out. The next update would be about digging deeper. I was done playing nice. I needed to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it cost. Update 2. After the mess that was that brunch confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that something serious was going on behind the scenes. My sister's vague text, my dad's half-hearted apology. It all pointed to one thing. They were hiding something. And if I was ever going to get answers, I had to start searching for them myself. They weren't ready to come clean, so I decided to go full detective. I asked my best friend if I could use her phone to create a fresh Instagram account. One that wouldn't be linked to me in any way. Just a blank, generic profile. I followed my family and some of their close friends, hoping that if I was being excluded, their social media might leave a trail. Didn't take long for something to slip. A couple days later, my youngest sister posted an Instagram story. It looked like another casual get-together. But what caught my eye wasn't the photo, it was the background. A screenshot of a text conversation she must have uploaded by mistake. In the top corner of the screenshot was the name of the group chat, Family Time No-Op. My stomach dropped. I snapped a screenshot of it before it disappeared. There it was, clear as day. They'd made a whole group chat specifically without me in it. This wasn't just about forgetting to loop me in. They had created a space to talk behind my back. I felt sick, but I knew I couldn't go into this guns blazing. Not yet. I needed to stay calm and find out the truth first. That night, I called my youngest sister and asked if she could meet me for coffee. We met at a little cafe not far from her place. As soon as I showed her the screenshot, her face turned pale. She looked like she'd just been caught in the middle of something she never wanted to be a part of. She started stumbling over her words, saying it was a mistake, that I wasn't supposed to see that. I didn't let up. I asked her, point blank, why was there a group chat without me in it? She froze, eyes welling up, and I could tell she was on the verge of breaking down. She was panicking, clearly torn between what she wanted to say and what she'd been told to keep quiet. Then, after a long, painful silence, she finally admitted it. She told me the group chat had been started about 6 months ago, and it was made specifically to talk about something personal, something they didn't want me to find out about. She begged me not to tell our parents she was the one who let it slip. I asked her what was so private that they felt the need to shut me out completely, but she just kept shaking her head, eyes wide, repeating that it wasn't her story to tell. And that's when I realized she was actually scared. I could see it all over her face, and that made my stomach drop even further. What on earth could be so serious, so intense, that they'd go this far to keep it from me? As I drove home, my mind was racing. I kept coming back to that timeline she mentioned 6 months ago. That's when things really started unraveling with Ethan. Everything between us had slowly started falling apart back then. My family had liked Ethan at first. He came to Sunday dinners, got invited to family get-togethers. My mom even called him a good fit for me once. But then something shifted almost overnight. They stopped asking about him. If I mentioned him, the conversation would suddenly veer in a different direction. A few weeks later, we broke up. I had always chalked it up to bad timing and relationship fatigue. Just one of those things. But now it didn't feel like a coincidence at all. I knew I had to reach out to Ethan. It was awkward, no doubt about it, considering everything that had happened between us. But if anyone could help make sense of my family's sudden coldness, it might be him. So I called. When he picked up, I could tell he hadn't expected to ever hear from me again. I didn't waste time. I asked him straight up if he knew why my family had started acting so weird. There was a long pause. He got quiet, like he was weighing whether or not to say anything. Finally, he said he didn't want to get involved, that it wasn't his place. And then he tried to end the call. I didn't let him off that easy. I told him I was done being kept in the dark, that I needed to know the truth, even if it hurt. After a moment, he admitted that something had happened involving my family right before we broke up. But he wouldn't give me the details. Said it wasn't his story to tell either. Then he hung up. I just stared at my phone, stunned and more confused than ever. I went straight to Reddit and posted another update, laying everything out. The response blew up fast. People had theories coming from every direction. Some thought maybe someone in the family had had an affair. Others guessed it was financial, maybe something to do with my inheritance or money drama. A few even brought up the possibility of secret paternity issues. I got messages from strangers saying they'd gone through similar situations, but none of it really clicked. Then came the message. It was from some burner account I'd never seen before. Just one line. Your family thinks they're protecting you. They don't want you to find out about what happened last year. Before I could respond, the account disappeared. I had no clue what that was supposed to mean. I tried to think back on anything major that happened the year before, but nothing stood out. At least nothing that would justify this level of secrecy and exclusion. At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove straight to my parents' house, heart pounding, determined to get some answers. I didn't knock. I just walked in and caught them both off guard in the living room. No small talk. I looked them straight in the eye and told them I knew about the secret group chat. I demanded they tell me why I was being left out, why I was treated like an outsider in my own family. My mom looked like she was about to break down. My dad just stood there, avoiding my eyes, staring at the floor. Before they could say anything, the front door opened, and my brother walked in. He took one look at the scene and just lost it. He shouted at them, said I deserved to know the truth, that this whole thing had gone too far. Then he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, leaving me and my parents in stunned silence. I turned back to them hoping, just hoping, that they'd finally say something. But they didn't. My mom kept repeating, "You'll know soon. Just trust us." Felt like I was living in some twisted dream. I left their house feeling more isolated than I'd ever felt in my life. Whatever the secret was, it was tearing everything apart, and no one would tell me why. But I was done waiting around for answers. Update 3. I hit my limit. After my brother's meltdown and my parents' refusal to come clean, I couldn't keep playing along with their silent treatment. I opened up the main family group chat, the one I was still in, and sent a single message. I'm done. If someone doesn't tell me what's going on, I'm cutting contact. I won't speak to any of you again until I get the truth. The reaction came almost instantly. My phone lit up with messages. But before I could read them, my youngest sister called. She was frantic, her voice shaky, almost in tears. She begged me to meet her in person. She said she'd explain everything, but needed to do it face to face. I agreed, and we set up a meeting at this little cafe we used to go to as kids. Neutral ground. When I walked in, she was already there, tucked away in a corner booth, looking around nervously like she expected someone to barge in at any second. I slid into the seat across from her, and before I could even open my mouth, she started talking. Her voice was low, like she was afraid someone might overhear. She said that last year one of our family friends had spotted Ethan out with another guy. But it wasn't just a normal hangout, they were acting like a couple. Holding hands. Laughing close. The kind of thing that wasn't easy to misread. That friend snapped a photo and sent it to my mom. And that's when everything spiraled. My mom showed the picture to my dad, and instead of coming to me, they decided to go straight to Ethan. They confronted him without telling me. And apparently Ethan admitted it. He'd cheated. But he begged them not to tell me. He said he was planning to end the relationship soon anyway and didn't want to make things worse than they had to be. So, my parents made a deal with him. He'd break things off quietly, and in return, they'd keep the affair to themselves. They honestly believed they were protecting me by hiding it all. As my sister explained this, she looked crushed, like the weight of the secret had been pressing on her the entire time. She told me the secret group chat had been created shortly after that to make sure no one let anything slip by accident. That's how they coordinated it all, what not to say, how to act around me, how to plan things without mentioning Ethan. They thought they were doing the right thing. That they were sparing me the heartbreak. But she knew now how badly they'd messed up. I sat there, completely frozen. I didn't know whether I wanted to yell, cry, or just disappear. It felt like the world had paused around me. She kept apologizing over and over. She said she truly believed at the time that it was the best way to handle it, but now, seeing how it all played out, she knew it had only caused more pain. They all knew it. I didn't say a word. I stood up, walked out of the cafe, and didn't look back. I couldn't sit there another second, not after finding out that my entire family had been working behind my back, making decisions for me like I was some fragile kid who couldn't handle the truth. I got in my car and drove with no destination in mind, just trying to clear my head. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was suddenly living someone else's life. Like this kind of betrayal couldn't actually be happening to me. Once I made it home, I posted the full update on Reddit. And just like before, the reaction came fast. People were furious on my behalf. The comments section lit up with outrage. Some folks couldn't believe my family had made a deal with the guy who cheated on me instead of being upfront. A few said maybe their hearts were in the right place, but even if that was true, the way they handled it was completely wrong. Most people agreed on one thing: my family had crossed a line, and it was going to take more than a few apologies to fix it. Later that night, I drove back to my parents' place. I needed to see them face to face. No more half-truths or vague excuses. When I walked in, they both looked like they'd been bracing for this moment, like they knew it was coming. I didn't waste any time. I asked them flat out why they thought it was okay to make a huge decision like that behind my back. Why they believed they had the right to protect me by lying to me. My mom broke down right away. She started crying and kept saying she thought she was doing what was best, that she couldn't bear the idea of me being heartbroken. She apologized again and again, but it didn't bring any real comfort. Not this time. My brother was there too. He admitted that he was the one who pushed hardest for the secret to be kept. He said watching me fall apart would have been too painful, and he truly believed keeping quiet was the lesser evil. He apologized too, but it felt hollow. The damage was already done. I told them all that I couldn't believe they'd take it upon themselves to manipulate my life like that, to make deals with someone who betrayed me and then pretend like everything was normal. That wasn't love. That was control. Then they brought up the group chat. My dad, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. He said they created the chat strictly to avoid slipping up and mentioning anything about Ethan or the affair. They genuinely thought they were doing me a favor by keeping me in the dark. I told them what they actually did was rip the floor out from under me. They didn't protect me, they shattered the trust one had in every single one of them. I couldn't even look at them the same way anymore. I left that night, told them I needed time, that I couldn't be around them. Not like this. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive them. They took something from me. My ability to handle my own heartbreak, to make my own decisions. They decided for me, like I didn't have the right to know the truth about my own relationship. They played God with my life, and now I'm the one left picking up the wreckage. When I got home, I posted another update. I said I was thinking about going to therapy because I didn't know how to deal with all the emotions piling up inside me. The betrayal, the confusion, the anger, it was too much. I thanked everyone in the comments for sticking with me, for being a sounding board when I felt completely alone. The support I got from strangers honestly meant more than I can even put into words. It made me feel human again. For now, I'm cutting ties. I need space to figure out what healing even looks like. Update 4. After everything blew up, I knew one thing for sure: I needed distance. The texts, the missed calls, the long messages trying to explain or make things right. It was too much. I muted the family group chat. I blocked everyone on social media. Not out of spite, just survival. I needed to clear my head without their voices constantly buzzing in my ear. For a whole month, I went no contact. It felt like a detox I didn't know I needed, but also like walking around with a constant dull ache that wouldn't go away. During that time, I made the decision to start therapy. I needed someone to talk to, someone unbiased. My world felt upside down, and I had no idea how to even start making sense of it. In that first session, I didn't hold anything back. I told her everything. Every betrayal, the hidden chat, the secret deal they made with Ethan. She listened quietly and gave me the space to lay it all out. Then she said something that hit hard. She told me that even if my family thought they were protecting me, what they actually did was controlling and manipulative. And hearing that from someone else, it was validating. It reminded me I wasn't crazy for feeling hurt. About 2 weeks into my silence, I got an email from Ethan. At first, I almost trashed it without opening it. But curiosity won. It was long, full of apologies. He said he regretted everything. The cheating, the lies, the way he'd handled our breakup. He admitted that my family had pressured him into ending things quickly and quietly, and he hadn't pushed back because he thought it would be easier, cleaner. He said he wished he'd just been honest, that he was sorry for how much pain he'd caused. Reading it was like someone reopened a wound I'd barely begun to stitch shut. All those memories I'd been trying to forget came rushing back. And suddenly, I found myself wondering, how much of that breakup had even been real? How much of it was actually my choice? I showed the email to my therapist and we unpacked it together. She told me not to respond. Not yet, anyway. To focus on what I needed, not the guilt of someone who only now realized the damage they'd done. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from my aunt. She was the one I'd reached out to early on, hoping for answers. She'd stayed quiet during all the drama, but apparently, she'd finally heard about the fallout. We met in person. She didn't sugarcoat it. She said my family's actions were rooted in fear, not malice. She told me my mom had gone through something similar when she was younger. She'd been cheated on badly, and it tore her apart. My aunt believed that my mom saw echoes of her own pain in my situation and went into protection mode, trying to shield me from the same heartbreak, even if it meant lying. And suddenly, it all made sense. It didn't excuse what they did, but it helped me understand why my mom had been the most desperate to keep the truth hidden. I could almost picture her younger self, broken, scared, and see how those old wounds were still steering her decisions today. A few days later, my brother reached out. He said he and my sisters had started going to family therapy, that they were trying to work through their guilt and figure out how to make things right. He told me they'd do whatever it took to rebuild the trust they'd broken, even if that meant starting from scratch. It was the first sign that they were really trying, that they were taking it seriously. I wasn't sure if I was ready to sit in a room with all of them yet, but I appreciated the gesture. It felt like a tiny crack in the wall I'd built around myself. I posted another update on Reddit, letting everyone know what had happened since I went no contact. The responses were mixed. Some people said I was right to keep my distance, that I needed to heal before even thinking about reconnecting. Others encouraged me to give the family therapy a shot, pointing out that their willingness to go meant they might actually be trying to change. That conversation left me with a lot to think about. But the next surprise didn't come from my family, it came from my best friend. One evening, she pulled me aside, her face serious, and told me something she'd been holding in for a while. She said she'd known for months that something didn't feel right last year. She'd noticed how strangely my family acted anytime Ethan came up, how they'd suddenly clam up or shift the topic. She hadn't said anything back then because she didn't have proof, just a gut feeling, and she didn't want to stir the pot unless she was sure. Still, she admitted she felt guilty for not warning me, even if it was just a hunch. She told me she'd been quietly angry on my behalf ever since all this came to light. And then, without hesitation, she offered to come with me to therapy if I ever needed someone in my corner. That offer meant the world to me. After that, I decided I needed a one-on-one with my dad. He'd stayed mostly silent through the whole thing, and I needed to hear his version, not filtered through anyone else. We agreed to meet at a nearby park, just the two of us. No house, no tension, no distractions. He didn't waste time making excuses. He looked me straight in the eye and apologized. He told me he hadn't agreed with the plan from the beginning, but he went along with it anyway because he didn't want to upset my mom. He admitted that in doing so, he failed me, that he should have stood up, spoken out, told me the truth. That hit me. It didn't erase everything, but for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt a tiny crack in the emotional wall I'd built. It showed me that not every decision they made was black and white. That even my dad had been struggling with the weight of it. I told him I'd think about coming to a family therapy session, but only under certain conditions. I made it crystal clear, if I showed up, I was running the conversation. No more secrets. No more side deals or protective lies. If they couldn't handle that, I'd walk away for good. He nodded and agreed. That moment, as small as it seemed, felt like the first real step towards something better. I still didn't know where this road would lead, but at least we weren't trapped in silence anymore. I kept taking things one day at a time. When the first family therapy session finally rolled around, I walked in not knowing what to expect. The room felt tense, thick with unspoken words and heavy emotions. Everyone looked on edge, like they were tiptoeing around something sharp. The therapist laid out the ground rules, letting us know it was a safe place to talk, but nobody said a word at first. We sat there in silence, avoiding each other's eyes, the weight of everything louder than any sound. Eventually, the therapist turned to me and asked me to start. So I did. I took a deep breath and let it all out. I talked about the betrayal, the secret group chat, the lies about Ethan, the decisions made on my behalf without anyone ever bothering to ask me how I felt. I didn't sugarcoat it. I laid out every painful detail. That's when my mom broke down. She started crying, saying she thought she was protecting me. That seeing me with Ethan brought back memories of something she went through, something that had shattered her when she was younger. She admitted she had made a terrible mistake, that in trying to spare me pain, she ended up taking away my voice and my trust. My siblings stayed quiet at first, but their guilt was written all over their faces. Eventually, my brother spoke up. He said he should have stood against the plan but was too scared of upsetting Mom. He thought going along with it was the safer choice at the time. He apologized too, said he regretted not speaking up when it mattered most. I told them how it felt to be excluded, to be treated like a problem to be managed instead of a person with a right to know the truth. How it wasn't just about Ethan or the group chat, it was about the trust they broke. Trust one wasn't sure I could ever fully get back. We sat there in silence for a while after that, letting it settle, letting it sting. Then I laid down my terms, clear and simple. No more secrets. No more deciding things for me behind closed doors. If they couldn't commit to that, then I was out. For good. They all agreed. And then, in a quiet but powerful moment, my brother pulled out his phone, opened the secret group chat, and deleted it right there in front of all of us. My sisters followed his lead. They swore from that point forward everything would be through the main family chat. No more hiding. No more lies. It didn't magically fix everything, but it was a start. After that session, I knew it was time to close another door. I wrote back to Ethan. I thanked him for the apology. I told him I appreciated it, but made it clear that I wasn't interested in revisiting the past. I said I needed closure and I was choosing to move forward with my life. I didn't want to carry bitterness or regrets around anymore. He replied a short time later. He said he understood and wished me well. Surprisingly, I felt lighter. In the weeks that followed, I started noticing real changes in my family's behavior. They checked in with me more often. I got invited to casual hangouts again. They were making an effort, and while things weren't perfect, the difference was noticeable. They were trying. And that meant something. We even started a new tradition, monthly family dinners where we promised to talk openly. No more glossing over the hard stuff. At our first one, I suggested we each share something we were struggling with. The idea felt awkward at first, but my brother stepped up. He admitted how much guilt he'd been carrying. My mom spoke next. She opened up about her anxiety, about how her own pain had shaped her choices with me in ways she hadn't realized until now. It was raw, but honest. And that mattered. I continued my individual therapy sessions too. I focused on rebuilding my confidence, on learning to trust again, not just others, but myself. I wasn't completely healed, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path. I updated Reddit one more time, thinking this might be my final post. I wanted to thank everyone who had followed along, who had offered advice, comfort, or just reminded me that I wasn't alone. The support had been like a lifeline, something solid to hang onto when everything around me was falling apart. But then, just when I thought the story was wrapping up, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the family friend, the one who had seen Ethan with someone else. The letter was full of apologies. They explained that they never meant for things to go the way they did. They tried to come to me directly back when it all started, but my mom had stepped in first. She'd asked them not to tell me anything. Said she'd handle it. It was a twist I hadn't expected, but it made everything fall into place. That last puzzle piece. I knew I couldn't move forward without having one last conversation with my mom. Just the two of us, no distractions, no other voices. We met up quietly, and as soon as we sat down, the emotions hit both of us like a wave. We cried. It wasn't dramatic, just quiet tears that had been building for too long. She finally admitted that her choices, everything she'd done, came from a place of fear. Fear rooted in her own past, in the pain she went through years ago. She told me she now saw how she'd been projecting that pain onto me, trying to control what happened in my life because she couldn't control what had happened in hers. Instead of letting me face my relationship and my own heartbreak, she tried to shield me from it, and in doing so, she caused a different kind of damage. It was one of the rawest, most honest conversations we'd ever had. But it ended with a hug and a quiet promise to try again. To rebuild. To start fresh. Now, when I look back on everything, I can say this much: I've learned a hell of a lot. More than I ever expected to. I've learned how vital honesty is, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it hurts. I've seen firsthand how secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, can wreck trust and create distance where there once was closeness. And I've learned that rebuilding trust doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes effort. But for the first time in what feels like forever, I actually believe it's possible. Things still aren't perfect, and I don't expect them to be. But I feel hopeful now. Cautiously, sure, but hopeful. I'm taking things day by day. My family and I still have a lot of healing left to do, but at least now we're doing it together. And that to me feels like a pretty good place to begin again.